Thank you. So first we'll review our agenda for today's meeting. Does anybody have any additions or revisions to the agenda for today's meeting? None. Excellent. Next we'll review the minutes from our August 28th meeting. Let's take a moment to look at those, and please let me know if you have any revisions or corrections.
So that
How you doing?
Well,
we're just waiting for a paper copy to come back in for nest.
okay.
I'm trying to scroll through here, but not too fast.
Yeah.
Any revisions or corrections to our minutes from last week? If not, the minutes will be adopted. Next on our agenda is variance training and fiscal year 25 summary.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. It looks like Beth is at the table, and I think, Sandy, do you want me to share her slides?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Brenda.
Yeah. So we have a variance on the agenda today, and we thought that it's just great timing to be able to do a variance training for board members. We like to do this annually as a reminder of what variances are, what it is, or what it says in Montana code about the board's authority, what it says in our regulations about the board's authority, and how variances function in Lewis and Clark County. Looks a little different in every county, how they go about it. And what the process is that the board uses to hear these. And so Beth has.
Brenda, do I need to hit stop share on my side, or are you good?
I'm just talking and fiddling at the same time. And okay, so are you all seeing the presentation, or did I mess that up?
No, we do not.
Okay, let me try it again.
Well, I do have the thumb drive if you want me to.
Stop sharing. She should be able to take control.
How about now?
There we go.
There you go. Okay, that's what.
And is it the presentation version, or is it the presenter notes version?
It's presentation version.
Perfect. All right.
Good.
All right. Beth is going to do the lion's share of the training for the Board of Health today. I'm going to jump in and help on a couple of the slides later in the presentation. So I'm just going to turn it over to her, and she's going to kick it off.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Beth Norberg, Environmental Program Supervisor and Sanitarian here at Lewis and Clark Public Health. For some of you, this is probably old hat. I'll try to make this brief and not very boring, but it is not the most exciting topic in the world. But I like talking about variances. But so with that, the Board of Health understanding kind of what a variance is and how they operate is a really vital function to every Board of Health in Montana. Our regulations, we have a set of regulations as sanitarians, as an environmental division, that govern on-site wastewater sewage disposal in the county. These regulations in section 1.3 are necessary to protect public health and environmental pollution. And the scope of those regulations apply to any person who is constructing, using, maintaining, altering, repairing new, existing, or abandoned wastewater treatment systems. So if you have a septic tank and a drain field in the ground, we're going to really have that regulatory authority over it. And so that's the general scope of our regulations. Now, where does that authority though come from? I think we get that question a lot. It's not just a Lewis and Clark County thing. I tell people this is handed down to us from the state of Montana, and this is Title 50. We are required to have regulations that are not less stringent than state standards. So the state sets, this DEQ sets the standards for the local counties, and we are to adopt regulations at that minimum that they set for us. Those regulations must describe standards for granting variances. So, I'm not allowed as a sanitarian to be out in the field and go, you don't totally meet the regulations. Don't worry about it. It's, we'll just, but I have to stick to those standards. So when someone cannot meet it, then we will recommend that they can always apply for that variance through the local Board of Health. And that is, from the minimum requirements that are identical to standards by the Department of Environmental Quality. Want to make sure I included that. They also have to provide for an appeal process. So as a Board of Health, if you deny an applicant's variance, they have a right to appeal that at the state level. So there is that as well. It's not just, nope, we're shutting you down as the Board of Health. There actually is an appeal process through the state. Okay, so what is a variance? I kind of mentioned that, but like I said, I don't have the authority to go and just say, don't worry about the regulations. You can just do whatever you want. You can ask for an exception to the regulations in 3 areas. The Lewis and Clark County on-site wastewater treatment regulations, which we just updated this last February or March. The state minimum standards, which is in the administrative rules of Montana. And the circular. So there's a design circular for all septic systems in Montana, and that is how they're actually physically designed. Okay. So you can ask for a variance from any of those parts on the local Board of Health level. So this is a quasi judicial action by a Board of Health. It's a procedure to objectively determine facts and draw conclusions from the facts. So your job is to look at what is presented to you and make sure the criteria are met and objectively look at that. Of course, after lunch, everybody wants to look at a failed septic system. So, but generally when we're dealing with variances, it is because someone needs to replace their septic system. We do see a few here and there of new development. We've seen some more recently just because we're living in a state where we're growing. And site conditions are not necessarily allowing people to do things within the bounds of those regulations, but usually it's for failed septic systems. I'll go ahead. Okay, so what are some of the reasons? In our county, you'll kind of see different site conditions in any county you go to, but ours, it's usually shallow or unsuitable soils. So we have fractured bedrock. We don't have enough soil for treatment. Maybe we have a shallow groundwater table. That's a lot of our variances we see is that depth to groundwater issue. Maybe we can't meet a setback, which the variance we heard with our hearings officer last week was a setback issue. We have floodplain running all through not just the Helena Valley, but Lewis and Clark County. And floodplain, as we know, changes when FEMA decides to change it. So those are your typical is our floodplain and our limiting layers. And setbacks are generally what you guys will typically hear for a variance request. So going into the criteria, again, the criteria are in Administrative Rules of Montana. That is 1736-922. We affectionately call those the 900 rules. I did change that to 2025 and then, sorry, Brenda, but it's 2025 regulations. And then our circular. So let's talk about what some of those requirements and criteria are for a variance. On the next one there. Okay, so homeowners don't get to just fill out an application and submit it and say, Board of Health, you decide. They do have a burden of proof to provide you with reasoning for a variance request. They have to provide that evidence, primarily the public health threats. So you cannot contaminate any actual or potential drinking water supply. You can't degrade a surface water or groundwater or surface water or groundwater supply. You can't cause a public health hazard. So if you're proposing a variance for an open pit system, that's probably not going to be good. So you can't cause a nuisance and you can't violate any other state law except for the rule for the variance you're applying for. So you can't apply for a variance and then go, yeah, there's this other law here too, but we don't need to worry about that one. You have to meet the requirements except for what you're asking for the variance for. So the homeowner really needs to understand that piece there. And then the staff, we are responsible though to explain that to the applicant. They don't, and I say homeowner, but it's property owner. We have business owners, we have homeowners, but property owner. We have to sit down with them and explain to them this process, that you need to show the Board of Health that you're meeting these criteria. We usually do what's kind of like a little pre-app meeting. We sit down with them, we go through the application, we go through all the application questions and describe that to them. They have to fill that out, they have to sign it. We then will complete the technical review, which is gathering the information, everything from what's on the site, from the site evaluation to maybe the groundwater monitoring or whatever, to what's on surrounding properties. We'll look at that entire site and decide what we need to do. And then we also will provide suggested conditions. If we're feeling as staff like they're probably meeting these criteria, of course, they have to present them to you and you guys have to decide that. But we might say, if the board were to grant this variance, these are some conditions we'd like to see in place. So we may suggest conditions to you guys. As a board, you get to say, I don't like those conditions, or maybe I want to add or delete or change them, but we'll kind of give you a template, if you will, of what we recommend as staff. And then we have to present our findings to the board or the hearings officer and be available to answer questions. We're here to specifically stay in the lane of these are the facts. This is the site conditions. This is why they're asking for the variance, and let you guys then be able to draw those conclusions, findings of fact and conclusions of law from that presentation. All right, next. Okay, also, so we talked about the public health threats, right? You can't contaminate groundwater, surface water. You can't cause a nuisance or a public health hazard, but you also have to consider these 4 criteria. They're slightly vague, but you can grant a variance if it would result in an undue hardship to the applicant, and that the variance is necessary to address extraordinary conditions that the applicant could not have reasonably prevented. No alternatives are reasonably feasible, and the request is not more than the minimum needed to address the extraordinary conditions. So as a board, like I said, I know that's kind of it's open for some interpretation, but really be thinking through that. Why is it with this person's asking for this variance? What are the extraordinary conditions? What are the, undue hardship? What are some of those things there? And we won't go too far into that, but I'm happy to answer questions about that later. So again, approving the variance cannot contaminate actual or potential drinking water supply, cause a public health hazard, violate any law or regulation for water, and cause a nuisance. So these criteria, you all have them I think you might have them in front of you. Those are copy and paste from the administrative rules of Montana, and they're copy and paste from our on-site wastewater treatment regulations. So we copied them from the rules of the ARM and put them in our regulations. So those are your specific criteria that you look at when you're granting a variance, which is nice because it gives you an outline of what you're supposed to be looking at. Okay, go ahead. And then typically or always, our variances include 2 hearing processes, and that's what Brenda is going to talk about, is a public hearing at a full Board of Health meeting like this, or we have a public hearing in front of the board appointed hearing officer, which is Lisa Kaufman, and we had that hearing last week, and that's what you'll be hearing after this, is that variance that was heard by Lisa. So with that, I'll let you talk a little bit about the Board of Health responsibilities.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. You're doing a really great job explaining. I find them to be pretty simple, but also kind of complex in the process. That's why we think that it's really important to take the time to talk about not only what it is and why they happen, but also the process that is used, because it can get a little complicated because there are a couple of options that the board can use to hear variances. And so, as Beth mentioned, it has to be an open public hearing. This is a quasi-judicial process, and the Board of Health has specific responsibilities, and they're important responsibilities. As Beth described, the staff has a really important role as the technical expert to provide you with the facts. But you, as the Board of Health, have the responsibility to decide if the variance will be granted or not. And so that public hearing, as Beth mentioned, can happen either in front of the hearings officer or at a full Board of Health. That those options are outlined in the regulation for either option to happen. And so we staff, so Beth and I typically will deliberate a little bit. We'll have a brief conversation about the variance request, and she and I will make a recommendation on whether the variance can be heard in front of the hearings officer, or if we think that it is something that's kind of out of the ordinary, we haven't seen before, something that's extra complex, and should really go before the full board. So if we think that it's something that the hearings officer, if it's something that's pretty straightforward, it's a typical variance request that the board has heard many times, we'll send a brief summary to Lisa and ask her. We think that this is something that the hearings officer can handle. What do you think? Do you want to hear this, or would you like it to go before the full board? So we kind of filter that first, but then we really ask Lisa, what is your preference? And she'll either say, yep, this is a pretty straightforward one. I can do the hearing and then take the recommendation to the full board, or she'll say, no, I think the full board needs to hear it. And so we do have both of those options at our disposal. We instituted the hearings officer approach because of how much time gets spent at board meetings. If every variance was heard at a Board of Health meeting, that's essentially all the business that you would end up doing. They can be very time consuming, and I was visiting with a health officer in Gallatin County, and they do not use a hearings officer. Everything goes before the Board of Health, and their board meetings go very long when they have variances. I actually just spoke with her a week ago, and they had 6 variances on their Board of Health agenda. So we choose to use the hearings officer to kind of avoid some of that happening and letting those variance hearings take up too much of the agenda. Let's see. So staff will present all of the information that they have gathered and their technical understanding of the situation. The chair will then open the public comment to make sure that the public have an opportunity to make comment on the situation. Sometimes we have neighbors that will show up and have an opinion about the scenario. Sometimes they will submit in writing, and we can use that public comment period to share those comments that came in via letter. And I actually think there is one of those, or maybe 2 of those, that occurred for the variance hearing that after we're done with the training, you'll see that one. I'm going to emphasize those 11 criteria again. It is really important that the Board of Health, you as Board of Health members, keep those 11 criteria kind of at the forefront of the decision-making process. It is vital that as the information is being shared, the facts are being shared, and the testimony from the applicant is being shared, that you're keeping in mind those criteria, because the Board of Health cannot grant a variance if those criteria are not met. Just to reiterate what Beth said earlier, those criteria are in place to protect the environment and public health. And so it is your obligation to make sure that those criteria are met. The board then asks questions and has discussion, and then essentially makes a vote from there. And so that's the process that you'll see happen when the variance comes to a full Board of Health meeting. You'll see that full process happen, full public hearing happen. And this is just to reiterate the hearing. This is the hearings officer responsibilities. So again, not all counties have a hearings officer. I just gave you an example of one that doesn't use that as an approach. But in our regulations, a hearings officer is an option. That hearings officer is elected by the full board every year. Lisa Kaufman is the elected hearings officer again this year. She has an environmental health background, which isn't required to be a hearings officer. I think we have historically had board members that haven't had a lot of environmental health background. We're just lucky to have Lisa with such a strong environmental health background as the hearings officer right now, but it's not a requirement. The hearings officer just needs to follow the process, which is to open the public hearing, again, review the testimony presented by staff and the applicant, take public comments, and then ensure that those 11 criteria are met. The hearings officer asks questions of both the applicant and the staff, identifies place and time of when the full board will hear the recommendation from the hearings officer. So when it goes before a hearings officer, it's the full public hearing process. And then at the end of that public hearing process, that recommendation from the hearings officer will come to the full board for ratification. And that is the option we chose for the variance that's on the agenda today. Staff will provide the written findings of fact and conclusions of law with the recommendation to the Board of Health, and then the Board of Health then takes a vote. Yes, you want to ratify the recommendation by the hearings officer, or no, you do not want to ratify that recommendation. And so the board has the final vote, the final say. The hearings officer is, their responsibility is really to bring that recommendation, hear all of the findings, hear all the facts, bring that recommendation for deliberation at a board meeting, and you have the vote.
All right. Okay, last little bit. I just always like to every year give you a quick rundown on our variances we've had. And this was fiscal year, only 4 applications. Great. You know, they are down. I would say that our variance applications are down. I was trying to draw some trends from that and couldn't really come to anything. So I have nothing exciting or insightful to say about that. We did approve 3 variances out of those 4. They were all depth to groundwater, the ones we approved. So that depth to groundwater is a thing. We denied 1 variance, and that is currently at DEQ under the appeal process, because the applicant did choose to take that to DEQ for appeal. So our applications are down. Permits are up. Again, no unstable reason. When looking at our permits, we do have a rather large subdivision that had about 40 septic tank permits, and I think it might have skewed our numbers a little bit this year. But we average about 7 to 10 variances a year on average. So, you know, we only had the 4 during, you know, that fiscal year. That's fine, but great. I mean, we really do try to find options for people as much as possible. So again, variances too, they're really reserved when there is no other option for someone. You know, when we do tell people, okay, you have an option. You're more than welcome to pay the application fee and go before the Board of Health, but no, they're going, one of the criteria is, are there options available? And so we have that discussion with them. So sometimes, we find that option. So yeah, it's been a pretty quiet last fiscal year for variances. But no trends really to draw. We like to look at trends and kind of see how things are going. So if we do need to adjust regulation or anything, with our process or policy, we can do that, but nothing that we can find right now. So we'll just kind of keep on going the way we've been going.
Question.
Yeah.
Be grateful that we're not Gallatin County.
Yeah, I've heard Gallatin County and I'm like, oh Lord, how do you do that many? Anyway, yeah, yes, go ahead.
Question, are variances tracked by volume and location to see if there is a potential for impact due to volume and location?
We certainly can. They are not tracked like spatially, if we want to look at an area. Is that kind of what you think? Yeah, we certainly can. It's fairly easy for us to look at variances, even if you want to even look at the last 10 years or 20 years and where they're located and see if there's a trend there. Largely, you'll see them. I mean, I can probably guess in certain areas. Those are your high groundwater areas, floodplains are going to be your main areas. But yeah, we can, and probably fairly easy. If you ever wanted to see that, we could put that information together. And we will during a variance hearing too. If we've had similar variances or a variance in that area that's not that parcel, we may, for reference, let the Board of Health know, hey, you have heard a variance like this before on an adjacent parcel, or maybe this parcel has requested a variance previously. So that'll be part of your facts that you receive.
And the reason for that is so that the board has an opportunity to be consistent with your decision making. So if you know that you granted a variance because of groundwater in the valley, it's important to understand that so that you can make consistent decisions as we move forward. And of course, Beth, you want to just take a second and talk about the septic system inventory that's getting ready to happen, because that will also help us predict. We kind of anecdotally know that we have really old septic systems that were never permitted because of our permit. The requirement to permit only happened in a, help me with the year.
1973, January 1st. 1973.
There we go. So anything that went in the ground as a septic system prior to that was not permitted. And so we know that there's a lot of old septic systems that very well could be coming up, having issues and failing in the near future. So that inventory is going to be really important for us to understand and predict what variances might be coming towards the Board of Health in the near future. Did you want to say any more about that?
Yes, we are undertaking an inventory right now. The consultant at this point has all of our permit information. They're crunching numbers. We have, I think they came out with 2,500 duplicate properties. So properties with multiple septic permits on them. And we're figuring out a way right now to know whether those are full replacement systems, if they're an additional system on a property, if it's a partial replacement of but we're really trying to get an exact count, or as close to an exact count of septic systems in the county. That way we can draw conclusions as well, especially is it turn age, type of system are the big ones, and help future policy decision making. And also if there's a variance request, what are the types of systems in this area, and we can pull that information out a little easier. It's exciting. It's a big undertaking, but it's we're getting through it.
Beth, can you talk about this a little bit, but I know we've had some, I think, questions amongst the board previously of like how, when somebody submits a variance request, it's for a specific requirement, right?
Yes.
And so I think we've had questions about like who chooses that, how does that. Can you talk about how you, like your role in that, if any, and how you work with the property owner to determine, or just so they know sort of like when they're submitting the variance request, how to identify what they are requesting a variance from?
Yes, absolutely. Very good question. Thank you. If I'm understanding correctly, so we do a site evaluation first. So a property owner comes to us and say they want to do or need to do X, Y, and Z on their property. That may be replace their septic system. It may be develop their property, whatever it is. We go out and do that site evaluation. We look at the soils, we look at the site, we see, does this site meet the minimum requirements? In a very fastest way to explain this, if it meets the requirements, great, you're on the road to a permit. Okay. If it doesn't, here's your options. Your permit, you have a site evaluation that's been denied for these reasons. So you can't meet this setback for this section of regulations. And so because you don't meet this section of regulations, you have one of two options in our regulations, is that you can seek an alternative location, or you can apply for a variance through this process. And so when they're applying for the variance, they are applying for a variance to a specific section of regulations that we've identified they can't meet as staff. Did that answer it? Okay.
No, that was exactly my question. So then I guess conversely, when we're reviewing variance requests, aside from those variants, the sort of regulation or rule that they're requesting a variance from, they are otherwise, that system would be compliant.
Correct.
Okay.
They have met all other requirements.
Okay.
And we cannot grant a variance unless all other requirements have been met. They're just asking for that one variance piece. Yeah. So we've identified what section it is. We do tell them, put that in the application, because people don't know what section of regulations to put. But yeah, that's how that comes about.
Thank you.
You bet. Yes, and they can apply, you can apply for two, yes, you can apply for more than one. If you don't meet 5 sections of the regulations, those 5 sections can all go into one variance request. Unlike Gallatin County. So I do know for a fact it's a separate variance request for each section of regulations. So, but we do it under one application. So whether it's 1 or 20. That is 20? Yeah.
All right. Do we have any further questions on that for either Trenda or Beth? Great. The next item on our agenda, we have before the Board of Health Hearings Officer recommendation from Lisa Kaufman for an on-site wastewater regulation variance for Mr. Kirk Wetzel at 4194 Marshall Lane, Craig, Montana. Is the applicant here?
No.
Okay.
They're not required to be here at the.
Right. So you shall have in your packets the variance request and its attachments, the recommendation by Ms. Kaufman, as well as the report from the Board of Health staff. I guess since we are Drenda, since we are I guess adopting this, we can just have a motion and then discussion on the motion and public comment.
Yeah, so there's the process that gets used when this goes before a hearings officer is, it's not the full public hearing, but what you'll ask for is a summary from staff on the variance application. And then the recommendation, if Lisa's on or in the room, she'll be able to give you her recommendation. And then the board will then ask the questions and have any discussion that needs to be had before the vote.
Okay, perfect.
Yep, does that help?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I guess let's start with a presentation from the Board of Health staff.
Members of the board, I'm Jay Plant, sanitarian. Just a brief overview of this variance. Mr. Wetzel, Kirk Wetzel, applied for this variance after we did a site evaluation. So like Beth had said, we were out on site. This was for a failing system, a system that was put in prior to 1973. Basically, it's a small lot, 0.17 acres, located along the Missouri River. Very little room to do anything. The system he had, when I showed up on the site, he had dug a small hole where he thought the septic tank was. We still today do not know what's in there. I think it probably is an old metal tank that's rusted out and basically just kept its shape. The drain field he had uncovered, that was two 50-gallon drums that were rusted out. Basically looked like someone had shot out with a bowling ball and had two big holes. So they were really not functioning at all. So at that point, we looked at the soil. I looked at the soil, did a soil analysis, determined the percolation rate, so on and so forth. Looked at the site to determine if it met the setback requirements for that system. It did not meet requirements to the neighboring well to the west, which basically was within that 100-foot setback. So, and also to fit a system in there, it would need to meet setbacks to the property lines. And in our regulations, you're required to have a 10-foot setback to all property lines. So Mr. Kirk was requesting a variance to section 4.3, table 4A of the Lewis and Clark County onsite wastewater regulations, which has those setback requirements stated in it. So after a couple site visits to the area, I determined that we could fit a non-conforming system in there. But it would basically require a variance to the regulation for the setback to the neighboring well. And looking at the board up there or at the screen, all the well, you can meet setback to all the wells except that west well, which would be about 63 feet from the drain field. And the tank would be within the 50-foot setback, which is, or outside the 50-foot setback, which is fine. And enabled to, I believe it's yellow, that little yellow rectangle would be the drain field, to stay as far away from that westerly well. We need to approach upon the eastern neighbor's lot. So we would be requesting a variance also to be within approximately 4 to 5 feet from that property line. Okay. All neighbors, the neighbor to the east that we've encroached upon the property line has, should be included in your packet, has given their approval for that encroachment. The neighbor to the west has given approval, which also is included, to encroach upon the 100-foot setback to the well. There's also a letter that no other feasible alternative was possible. The neighbor across the road, across Marshall Lane, did not give permission to allow for an easement for drain field on their property. So, other than that, it's basically looking at variance to the property line and setback to the well, or put setback to the well. All setbacks to surface water and everything will be met. You know, Missouri River, so on and so forth, would be greater than 130 feet. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand. So on one side, they're fine with a variance.
Mhm.
Actually on both sides.
Yeah.
Right. So the one across the road is where the drain field will encroach?
No, where the arrow is, where the cursor is there, that neighbor to the south, they do have quite a large lot with room for probably a easement area to put a drain field. Mr. Kirk did ask permission to see if he could gain access to an easement there, and they told him no. Basically, they have their drain field sitting there, their own drain field area for replacement, and they didn't want to have to sacrifice any area for
So Does he have room for a new drain field?
Yes, I've highlighted there in the yellow, that we could fit a replacement area. And you can see his house, the little cabin, kind of hard to see, but where it says 4194 Marshall Lane, that is the house. The old drain field would be just to the north of that yellow rectangle where those two barrels were. So that would be the proposed drain field area. And it would be, the proposed drain field would be what's called a Presby enviroseptic, which is has a smaller footprint than your standard drain field. So it would be a sand bed bedded with wash sand, and you lay these special pipes in the sand, and that would be your treatment area. A standard drain field, gravity drain field would take up pretty much most of that or half of that lot. And we would then have to deal with setbacks to the foundations of the home, the neighboring wells, his well, which you can see this, the circumference or the circle there. Now this is 100-foot setback. So did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Just to get oriented, which way is north on that map?
North would be the river, the dark.
Like this?
Yep. East, south of the river on the south side. Sorry, I didn't explain that very well. Yeah, he's on the south side, river to the north. The well in question that we're approaching on would be to the west. So your left side would be the west. We did have a few recommendations for this, is that the home does not exceed 2 bedrooms, which it currently is a 2-bedroom. So if he were to expand the house, that would require expanding the drain field, and they're just not room for it. So and he agreed he didn't want to expand past 2, so it would remain a 2-bedroom. Physical barriers would be placed around the perimeter of the drain field, just because the driveway to the cabin is to the left of the drain field. So we don't want anybody parking on the driveway.
Photo for you.
The neighboring property at 4188 Marshall Lane would file a document with the clerk and recorder's office that acknowledging that the system will be less than 100 feet from their well. And they would also do annual testing for coliform and nitrate, coliform bacteria and nitrate. Since that is within that 100-foot setback, we want to make sure that we're not contaminating their well by when that well does draw down.
Yeah, I have a question about that. So that's a risk when the neighbors said that it was okay to shorten the setback. That's a risk to their well,
Yes, it
to
is.
their drinking water.
That is a risk, yes.
But that is still legal.
Well, okay, one thing I didn't mention, the drain field is gradient downstream of that well. So
Okay.
looking at a topographic map, so on and so forth, in the direction of the flow of the river. Sandy, you have
That is this one.
well, there's one with an arrow. Keep going up the other direction. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
Groundwater flow, we feel is kind of towards the river to the northeast. So hopefully that any nutrients in that system are moving away from there. But yes, that is still a risk. So the 100-foot setback is, a rule. It is a recommendation for, when a well starts pulling in that water from around, that is a safe zone.
So if the neighbor found down the road that they were getting contamination, what would the homeowner that we're talking about, what would he have to do?
Well, you're looking at probably pre-treatment, or as far as treatment of that water, reverse osmosis, some type of filtration system for that owner. So
For the neighbor?
yes.
Really? So the septic thing, once it gets okayed, it's
Yes,
there.
and that was something we didn't really dive into too much, is what the requirement, for that homeowner. So
Because isn't there septic systems that have like 3 sections to them where it comes out pretty pure?
Yeah.
on the other end of it. Is that a
Yeah,
consideration?
they do make a pre-treatment level 2 system, it's called. So
Mhm.
before that wastewater ever hits the natural ground surface, it's recirculating, it's being filtered. So a lot of the nitrates and nutrients are removed before they hit the ground surface.
So that's an option?
Well, that is an option. With the proposed system that's there, the Presby system, nitrate removal is much higher than a standard drain field. So we didn't go with the pre-treatment or didn't recommend that.
Hmm.
Didn't feel it was necessary at that point. So if it would have been just a standard leach field, we probably would have, but
Mhm.
Presby, you have a system that consists of a pipe, perforated pipe with a couple different types of filter fabric that, it's going through, and then it's going through a wash sand before it hits native soil. So
So it's a step up from just a leach field.
correct.
And so that's two options. Is there a third option?
Third option. No,
Really?
no.
So I've heard, so down in Texas, I have a cousin that lives down there, but they had to have when the water came out the other end, they used to spray their lawn with it. Like it was pure enough. It was not really drinkable, but it was pure
Yeah.
enough for that.
That was probably a pre-treatment, level 2 pre-treatment. So
Okay.
there's different types,
Mhm.
different types of filter methods.
Mhm.
Some of it's aeration, some of it's,
Yeah,
a fabric filter, something like that.
Okay.
So,
okay. I was thinking it was just a leach
Yeah.
field, but.
yeah, and if the well had been closer or on the other side of the property, we'd probably be looking a little more at that direction for that. So
The other question I had, who has been there the longest? Like, which place was there before other lots encroached on it?
that I'm not sure. I believe that Mr. Wessel's property was built in the 60s. And just from looking at the record and from what he knew, the neighboring property, 4188, does have a permitted septic system.
Oh,
So I believe, is a little newer.
I was just wondering if there's a precedent that gets set with the oldest inhabitant versus the people that move in around them.
No.
No, not
I
really.
mean, if they had been put in, and each one permitted, yeah, that probably would never have happened that way because
Yeah,
they wouldn't have met.
Right.
Unfortunately, back in those days when that subdivision was created, those lots were very small. And the future foresight wasn't really.
yeah, I understand. You're gonna be facing a lot more of that, I take, yeah, in the future.
Yeah.
That's in the Dearborn. Is that where?
Well,
Right.
yeah, right
Right,
past the Dearborn where it comes in.
yeah.
Is this a full-time residence or?
Currently, it is not. Mr. Wetzel is proposing that it be in the future just because of cost of living to try and afford the house or the cabin. They feel they may have to move there, sell that. They do live currently in Great Falls, so they would sell that and move there. And they are both pre-different. Yeah, it's been in the family for.
It's the 75.
Yeah. He acquired it from his parents.
Any additional question for Jane?
I just have one more. So trying to understand all this. So it says not granting this variance will result in undue hardship to the applicant. Do you guys ever do that where there's an existing place like that and it's just virtually impossible to meet regulation and the variances will possibly contaminate, some-
Yeah, that has happened.
where it's just a flat no, and then
Yeah.
then it's
Yeah, and each situation, like Beth mentioned, is different. So, it could be you have a situation of high groundwater, you might have, 10-foot setback to a surface water, a stream or something that, putting in a system will definitely impact
mhm.
a lot more than just, this setback or something.
Is that why you stopped? Like you guys don't, the water quality district doesn't go to Canyon Ferry? I was just wondering about that because that would be like a nightmare.
No, that's, yeah. And we do like Canyon Ferry too.
We used to have a cabin on the lake and I'm sure we wouldn't have met anything.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like I said, each situation different. So I mean, you might have a situation where you're on a lake and you have, a steep slope where that, might daylight down below your cabin
Mhm.
right at this lake.
Mhm,
So,
mhm. Yep, that was our lot.
yeah. But there's always, hope that you can find something that will be protective. But some cases you can't.
Hmm.
Anything else? Thank you, Jay.
Beth, do you happen to have the criteria document that you filled out during the hearing with Lisa last? I see that she's not at the meeting today.
Yep. Brenda, I have it right here. What
Right
would you
there.
like me to do with it?
Well, will you summarize that the criteria were met, and then just let everybody know what Lisa's recommendation was at the end of the hearing?
Absolutely. And everyone has a copy of the recommendation, correct, in their packet?
Yes.
So it's signed by Lisa? Okay. So these are the criteria. Criteria 1, granting the variance will not contaminate any actual or potential drinking water supply. It was determined that the well to be tested annually for nitrate bacteria, a document filed with the clerk and recorder acknowledging the reduced setback. Cause a public health hazard as a result of access to insects, rodents, or other possible carriers of disease to humans. It's going to be a Presby bed. It's approved in Montana, approved for fine sandy loam, and has an NSF 40 certification and a higher level of treatment than a standard trench. Granting the variance will not cause a public health hazard by being accessible to persons or animals. This is a Presby enviroseptic bed. It is approved in Montana as a wastewater treatment system. The tank is required to be watertight and inaccessible just by standard regulation. So that was met. And then granting the variance will not violate any law or regulation governing water pollution or wastewater treatment disposal, including the rules contained in this subchapter, except for the rule that the variance is requested from. The note here was that this could be met with annual sampling. The setback to the Missouri River is met, so that will also meet that requirement. And to all other wells except the well that they're asking the variance from. There's also not a requirement for non-degradation review because this is a replacement system that was installed prior to April 1st, 15th, 1993. The variance, granting the variance will not pollute or contaminate state waters in violation of Title 75-5605. Again, it will meet the setback to the river. It's approximately 130 feet. And there, again, no requirement for non-degradation. It will not degrade state waters unless authorized pursuant to 75-503. And again, meets the setback to the river and non-degradation not required. So those are kind of those degradation water quality pieces as part of the Water Quality Act for Montana. Cause a nuisance due to odor, unsightly appearance, or other aesthetic consideration. The system is buried and allowed by state regulations. So that is the state doesn't approve systems that will cause a nuisance. And that compliance with the requirement from which the variance is requested would result in undue hardship to the applicant. These are the notes that were made during the hearing. May have to move there to afford to live. Property taxes are too high and they're at their permanent residence. A lot of money invested in this property, have been going there over 30 years. Holding tank will cripple the value and can't afford a holding tank. So there was an option of a holding tank that we discussed in the hearing and not having a drain field. And that was something that was discussed with the hearings officer. And the variance is necessary to address extraordinary conditions that the applicant cannot reasonably prevented. The property's been in the family since 1972 or 1973. They don't want to sell it. They want to make sure the system is not going to fail. And no alternatives that comply with the requirement are reasonably feasible. We talked about the easement. There's no easement option. That neighbor is not willing to grant them property for that drain field, and there's no other option available. And the variance requested is not more than the minimum needed to address the extraordinary condition. the size and type of system is the minimum state requirement. So we're not asking for something above and beyond what the state minimum requirement is, just because we feel like it. There's not data or anything to support, like the level 2 treatment that you asked, which was a really good question, because that's within the board's realm to ask those questions. Like, why wouldn't we want to do a more protective treatment? And that's where, when Jay was saying the direction of groundwater flow, moving away from where that well is at, and the type of system that's in the ground, we felt was protective of enough for that. And then to monitor with annual sampling. So that was all those criteria were met according to the hearings officer. And those are the notes there. Brenda, is that?
Yes, thank you very much. And then Sandy has on page 34 of your board packet. Yeah. Sandy does have on the screen there, this is the hearings officer recommendation. She does recommend the board approve this variance.
Right, do we have a motion to ratify the hearing officer's recommendation?
So moved.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Any public comment on the motion?
No.
All right. All those in favor, aye.
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 All opposed, no. And the motion passes. All right. Thank you, Jay and Beth. Next, we have number 5 on our agenda, consider a resolution to support sustainable public health funding. So this was added to the agenda as a result of our discussion last meeting. I had requested that Brenda, our health officer, draft a statement that we could look at to adopt as a Board of Health in support of advocating for continuing federal funding that the department utilizes in administering local programs. So Brenda, I don't know if you want to kind of talk about the draft resolution.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. On the screen is the draft resolution that I drafted.
Oh, wait a minute. There you go.
Good to go?
Yeah.
Okay. I took information both from our local work here at the health department, as well as some information that supports our essentially our request to adequately fund public health. And so we'll start at the top, work our way down, and happy to take feedback and make adjustments. This is an action item, so the board will vote to either accept the resolution, we can get it sent off to our congressional delegation, or vote not to. So that's the action that you'll take on the draft today. So just at the top, the statement is essentially the return on investment that public health, when public health interventions are administered in a community, there's essentially a $14 return on investment for every dollar invested in public health work. That comes from a national study. The second statement, federal funds are important, and they essentially make up 37% of our local budget to do the work that we do in Lewis and Clark County. We utilize 37% of our budget is federal funding. And then the next statement essentially says that 55% comes from local funding and 8% from state funding. And so there's an uneven dependence on local residents to fund public health. Federal funds help to protect our community through prevention and early intervention with targeted and effective solutions. And foundational public health services consist of communicable disease control, chronic disease and injury prevention, environmental health, maternal child health, and access to and linkages to clinical care. Over 75,000 county residents benefit from public health services at Lewis and Clark Public Health, and what we offer here. And what's funded by these local dollars right now is tobacco prevention and cancer control, substance misuse prevention, suicide prevention, supplemental nutrition for pregnant and parenting families, or the WIC program, evidence-based home visiting, and institutional controls from Superfund sites to protect from environmental contaminants. We are concerned about long-term impact of cuts on public health infrastructure, which would have significant impact on our ability to monitor and defend against infectious disease, battle opioid and mental health epidemics, and deliver high-quality care to veterans, seniors, and other community members. Lewis and Clark Public Health remains committed to serving our community as best we can, and federal support is key to our ability to improve quality of life and ensure economic productivity while helping to achieve national health priorities. And then be it resolved that the Board of Health asks our congressional delegation for support, and that they appropriate federal funds to adequately fund public health services at the local level. That is the draft for your consideration.
Thank you, Brenda. Do we have, to start, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution?
I would move to adopt the resolution as it's presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion.
I'm not really understanding it. So is this guaranteeing this is going to go to the legislature, and it's guaranteeing that the Department of Health gets a certain amount of money every fiscal year?
So this is going to the federal representatives of Montana is how it's drafted right now.
Okay.
So because so much of the county health budget is from federal appropriations, and those are being debated right now, this would be a resolution that we could show our support for, kind of like maintaining the amount of funding that we're relying on now. To our congressional delegation that's voting on the federal budget, which then kind of comes back through different programs to, in small part, our health department.
Right. So it just shows support. It doesn't necessarily guarantee
No.
have this. It's just hey.
It's asking them to vote positively for funding.
Yeah.
It's us saying it matters to our function, basically.
Yeah.
There's a single voice instead of individual.
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, there's really not much we can do beyond that as a board, right?
Oh, no, I was just thinking
Yeah.
that, like, this is
Yeah.
kind of basic, like, please,
Yeah.
please
Yeah.
do this.
I think with the discussions that we've been having as a board about our budget, about the uncertainty of, ongoing federal funding, that, it seemed like doing something is better than doing nothing, even if we're limited in sort of how we can advocate.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I can add, so I've worked in a congressional office, and it is a meaningful act, I think, to be able to know that the elected leaders and boards of health and others are paying attention, have connected that funding to the important work that gets done, and the folks that are elected to Congress care a lot about people on the ground. And so I think it's a meaningful act to be able to collectively express whatever your opinion is, just having been on the receiving end of those and realizing how they discuss them.
So are we the only board that's doing that in Helena? I mean, are they doing it across the state?
I don't, Brenda, is Brenda still on?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Are you aware of any other similar action by other boards of health?
Other boards of health are taking this similar resolutions under consideration, and then also our state association Confluence is putting together letters of support to send. So with the idea that, you know, the public health, that our congressional delegation is hearing from public health in the state of Montana. So we are not alone in this.
Do we say to the point about it's useful to know that like boards are looking at this and caring, do we actually say anywhere like we are concerned that cuts to funding will decrease our ability to do those things? We allude to it. Do we explicitly say we're going to have to cut programming because of this?
This statement here I can certainly change, make edits to that if the board wishes.
Do we want to make that statement more direct?
I think there's some difficult, and Drenda, correct me if I misstate any of this. I think there's some difficulty in hypothesizing like what those cuts would be without actually seeing, because I think the funding is so complex. Kind of, we know like a big dollar amount, but then once you get more into more granular sort of like what funds are being spent on what programs, that becomes very difficult without an actual proposal.
Sure. What if we say instead of which would have a significant impact, which would like decrease our ability? A little bit more.
Which would, so
It would decrease our ability to monitor and defend. As a very small, but you know, without saying this is what it's going to do, it's a more direct way of saying this is going to hurt us.
Mhm.
And then my other thought going through this, in that same paragraph, thinking of the nationally stated public health priorities, we talk a lot about family services, you know, WIC, home visiting, in that decreasing our ability to promote healthy growth of families.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that the young ones need to be mentioned in there a little bit more, especially in that paragraph.
Particularly because it does align with federal priorities.
Yeah, I was noticing it touches on everything except that paragraph, except the babies and so she talks about it up above, pregnant, parenting, families, home visits, that kind of thing. I don't think that can be emphasized enough.
Yeah. And is it something we do pretty well?
Personally, I think this is great. I think this is just, you know, a real simple thing to get to express our concern to the you know, elected officials at this federal level.
Yeah, are we missing any other major mission issues in there? Things that we do? Have we covered it all?
Drenda,
Processes that we do?
yeah,
Like clean drinking water.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I focused on the programs that we are currently receiving funding from the federal government to do work at the local level, which is what I've highlighted here. So it does not encompass every single thing that we do. A lot of what we do is locally funded. Water Quality Protection District, for example, that is 100% funded through fee assessments, property tax assessments from individuals living in that district. So these are the programs that we receive federal funding for at this time.
Okay.
I'm just looking at this, thinking of the language. Maybe it could be would have a significant impact or decrease our ability to promote healthy growth of families and our ability to monitor and defend against infectious disease. Maybe move that up to in front of monitor and defend, because promote healthy growth and then ability to monitor.
Mm.
That's my one thought.
Mhm.
I think the among in that among veterans, I think the among goes away.
Or veteran seniors.
And should there be and to before the word deliver?
Yeah, and to deliver high quality care to.
Yeah.
Growth.
Growth of families.
Yeah.
Healthy growth of families.
And I could wordsmith just little things. I just want to make sure that I'm capturing your intent.
Yep.
I'll read that and make sure that we got it right, but let's just focus on your intent and what message you want to send.
You got the nouns in there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or suggested revisions from the board?
Brenda, could you see that I get a copy of it so that as the commissioners are talking to the congressional representatives that we can pass it along?
Yeah, I'll make sure all board members receive a final copy.
Anything else? Do we have a substitute motion to adopt the proposed resolution with the revision suggested by Dr. Nast?
I was so moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any other comment on the motion? Any public comment on the motion?
May I, I'm Julie Burr. I'm the Behavioral Health and Chronic Disease Prevention Supervisor. All of my programs are grant funded. The programs of my team, including Karen, who you'll hear from in a bit. So, thank you. Just want to say thank you for doing this and signing off on it because it's been an interesting time trying to make sure all of our funding comes in. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Nope.
Thank you. On the motion to adopt the proposed resolution as amended, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the motion passes. All right. Next is on our agenda, number 6, WIC update.
Give me a second to get my presentation now. That goes around. Wait.
Yep.
There. Oh, no. Okay. I didn't know I had that. Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for giving me the opportunity to give you a WIC update. I just want to start by telling you who is on the WIC team. Maria Stoli is a registered dietitian. Sherry Winchell is also a registered dietitian. Dawn Sullivan is our clinic coordinator. Haley Brockty is the new breastfeeding peer counselor. And then I am their supervisor. For those that may not be as familiar with WIC, it is a program that aims to safeguard the health of low-income women, infants, and children up to the age of 5 who are at some kind of nutritional risk by providing nutritious foods to supplement diets, information on healthy eating, and referrals to resources in their community. Who we serve, the name is misleading. WIC stands for women, infants, and children. But we serve all kinds of families, pregnant women, postpartum individuals, even if they've had a pregnancy loss, we still can serve them up to 6 months. Parents and guardians with any children under the age of 5, fathers, grandparents, foster parents, and we serve all of Lewis and Clark, Jefferson, Broadwater, and Marr counties. Eligibility is determined by the household size, and that's the part I gave you is the new income requirements for this next fiscal year. So this last year, we did have some changes. We hired Dawn, and she's been in her position now just over a year. She's our new clinic coordinator, and she's done a fantastic job. Haley is new too as our breastfeeding peer counselor. At the time last year, we also had a WIC aide who was one person who was the WIC aide and the peer breastfeeding counselor. We decided as a team not to rehire the aide part, and Dawn does it all. She's extremely efficient, and we made that decision with her wishes in mind. She wanted to be able to do all of that, and it runs pretty smoothly. This last year, we have served an average of 764 participants every month during the year of fiscal year 25. Our satellite offices started up again last year and are continuing. Broadwater, Dawn goes to Broadwater County once a month and to Marr County every quarter to be more accessible to families who live in those areas. So new this year, we started with some online forms that if anybody's ever been through WIC, the forms and the paperwork are tedious. We were able to put some of those forms on our online, and they are all HIPAA compliant. Makes the process a little bit more smooth for families. Also, the state WIC implemented the Healthy Together app, which is for the farmers market. Right now, it's for the farmers market. This app will then also serve as the app for WIC in the future. Hopefully by January, they're going to have all of the application, all of the forms online on an app, which will make the whole process much more smooth for families. WIC also continues to work closely with home visiting programs to provide comprehensive education and breastfeeding support to families. Haley, as our new peer breastfeeding coordinator, is also our universal home visiting home visitor. And so that match of those jobs has been really helpful. So she might be introduced to a breastfeeding woman in WIC, and then she can talk to them about what home visiting is and offer additional support as to what she does with peer breastfeeding. We have our continued collaboration with the immunizations department. We make sure that all pregnant women coming into WIC know that they can get a free syphilis test, which has been a big problem in our area over the last couple of years. So we try to ensure that they know that they can get a free one, and then they would get some support with coordinating with their physician for treatment. We also have partnered again with Head Start and Early Head Start in their events to offer WIC applications, lead testing, home visiting information. We do car seat checks, and the immunizations department comes along with us. Kind of like a one-stop shop for families. So with nutrition education, counseling and education, they have visits every 3 months with a registered dietitian. That can be a little bit misleading because they're required to have 2 visits with the dietitian for certification and recertification. So that's twice a year. Then they can also have follow-ups. It doesn't necessarily have to be with the dietitians. They get really busy, but Dawn can work as the aide and do some follow-ups with families who are not high risk, who are not considered high risk. There's also the WIC Smart online education available for a follow-up, so they have some choices. The food packages did make a change in January, and we found out this year that Montana was the first state to roll out the changes in the nation. That was kind of cool. So there is a trade for juice, so they can have extra fruits and veggies if they don't want to buy juice. They can trade a half gallon of milk for 2 quarts of yogurt, and trade eggs for peanut butter or beans. The attempt is to make things a little bit more flexible for families. Okay, the farmers market this year was the first year they did an electronic farmers market app through that Healthy Together. It has had a little bit of challenge for us this first year. We do have one of our farmers that we've contracted with is Hooterite, is from the Hooterite colony, and they don't use electronics. And there has not been a good, we talked about that a lot leading up to that change. However, there was not a really good solution. There were some possibilities that farmer could have a friend use their phone for purchases and that kind of thing, but it didn't work out this year. So we only had 3 farmers that were at the farmers market. And then with the,
We can't use the tokens because then we can't guarantee they use it for a.
well, the tokens just won't, they just aren't doing them anymore. Yeah, they switched wholly to electronic this year. And that was difficult for families because they weren't really sure what to do. We have the WIC Shopper app, which helps them do their regular grocery shopping. And then they implemented the Healthy Together app, which was just for the farmers market at this point. And some families got confused about, I thought I was supposed to use WIC Shopper, and then it was a bit difficult. I expect next year will be way easier. Everybody was learning. So my staff was learning and the state was trying to implement, and farmers weren't sure of what to do, and families also weren't sure of what to do. So I think that our redemption rates are going to be a little lower this year, but I expect that next year will be much better. And hopefully we can come up with a solution for the Hooterite colony. Yeah. We continue to host 2 interns from MSU each year. They spend about 2 weeks with our registered dietitian, Sherry, here in the office. It is a lot of work for Sherry, honestly. She's explaining things and helping them understand all day, every day for 2 weeks. So it's a good experience, though, because then those interns then do a project and kind of present back to us at the end of the 2 weeks. It's been really nice. They can also help with our outreach, which is nice. We continue with the peer breastfeeding program. As I said, that Haley was hired this year. She was hired in February. Dawn, who's the clinic coordinator, also became a CLC, which is a certified lactation consultant. In WIC, you have to have a separation of a lot of duties. So Haley, as a peer counselor, has been a WIC client, and she breastfed her own children, and that's her role as a peer. We also need to have a breastfeeding coordinator who is a CLC. And so Dawn was able to complete those classes. So she acts as the breastfeeding coordinator. So if a family or a woman has more in-depth questions that are more technical, she can answer those questions, and Haley can support as a mom-to-mom kind of thing. We continue to offer hospital-grade breast pumps. We do utilize Medicaid. Most families can get that through Medicaid now. And then ours would be secondary if they couldn't get through Medicaid or if they didn't have Medicaid. We also have hand pumps available for all breastfeeding participants, as well as other breastfeeding supplies such as breast pads and freezer bags for milk storage. So outreach is, well, I think Amber walked out, but Amber has been really great about helping us put together some outreach for this year with some of our savings when we didn't rehire our aide. We will be having these billboards up this year. So you'll probably in the next few weeks, you might see these billboards up around Lewis and Clark and Jefferson counties. we'll also have some radio ads going, so if you listen to the radio, you can hear those. We're continuing, as I said, in Broadwater and Mar counties to be present in those counties and so families can come in. That's really helpful for one family in particular that has a hard time getting to Helena, and the state has to order their formula. So we have to bring it to them. She doesn't have to drive into Helena to pick up her formula every month. Since Haley is our breastfeeding peer counselor and she's also a home visitor, she has been on the Women and Children's Unit with St. Pete's, and she's able to promote both home visiting and WIC, which has been just a fantastic relationship in this last year. And this year we have attended at least 12 community events trying to get our information out there to the community. It's been a big event season this year. Okay, so this is just a little feedback that we got. We don't always hear a lot of good stuff. So I wanted to share this. This is a family that Sherry was working with. The family was really struggling. Their baby was losing weight, and they were trying different formulas. Sherry understood, she thought she knew what might be going on, which was something similar to another family. And so she was able to consult with the physician and talk about different types of formula, and the family was able to get that straightened out and the baby's gaining weight. So I'll just read that for those that might not be able to read, it's kind of small. The mom messaged Sherry and she said, I just wanted to take a moment to express our heartfelt gratitude for all the support you have provided for our son and us. From the challenging early days at the hospital where he struggled with weight loss and we faced difficulties with breastfeeding, to numerous specialist visits, including cardiologists, GI experts, and feeding specialists, we have navigated through continuous weight checks, countless bottles and nipples, numerous formulas and medications. Despite these hurdles, thanks to you, we have reached a point where we can truly enjoy time with our son without the constant stress of feeding. We're even looking forward to our upcoming weight check in 2 weeks, something we used to dread. Again, thank you for everything. We truly appreciate your dedication and care. So I just wanted to share that because that's pretty fun. I want to just also say that we have 2 dietitians and Dawn, it's a pretty small crew. Haley works only 10 hours in breastfeeding. So basically the 2 dietitians and Dawn serve all of those families every month. And I cannot tell you how anytime that I ask a question about a particular client, they have no problem knowing who they are, what their situation is, and what's going on with that. It rarely happens that they don't know who I'm talking about if something comes up. So the dedication of that staff is just incredible. And yeah, I just wanted to share that. So is there any questions?
Well, good.
All right, thank you very much.
For the pre-syphilis screening.
Yeah.
So if they have a physician, they should be getting 3 during prenatal care.
Yes. And sometimes they don't know if they've had that test. I have checked with those that have Medicaid. I've checked that if we do another one, is it going to be a problem if we try to build Medicaid? They are fine with that. So everybody who's pregnant is offered it. Some do know that they've had it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's always optional.
Sure.
But if they're just not sure, they can have another one for free.
Awesome.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, next on the agenda, number 7, Healthy Communities Coalition.
Mr. Chair, this is Brenda. I believe Karin is in the room to give you an update and presentation on our Healthy Communities Coalition work.
Yep, we are trying to get the screen. What am I doing wrong here? I can't move them.
Oh, and I see her. She's just off my screen is all.
There you go. When it goes.
You're not gonna ask me for help again, are you?
Hold on, it's okay. We'll get it back up. Ready to go. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, now you're ready. You can. Oh, sorry. Here. Oh. Sorry, I've got all these things. Let's just get. There you
That's-
go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't enable external content for this session, but I don't see how to
Oh,
get to that. So like here, and I can't.
So click on the enable button. It's possible.
Then
Click OK.
Is that one not gonna go down? There we go.
There you
Now
go.
enter, maybe.
Okay, just push it at the
Okay,
bottom.
we'll put it in there.
the issue is.
There you go.
Screen.
It's not strong enough.
Okay.
We're keypad is.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you so much for having me. My name is Karen McLean, and I run the Tobacco Prevention and Cessation Program. And in that vein, I think Brenda has sent this to Board of Health, but I wanted to go ahead and invite you again to a special event that's being had on October 29th at the Brothers Tap Works on Last Chance. And it's to celebrate the 20-year anniversary of the Clean Indoor Air Act, which is really an awesome thing. Especially in light of last legislative session, we were able to expand the Clean Indoor Air Act to include electronic cigarettes. So it's just kind of a gratifying time in the work of Clean Indoor Air Act. So we would love, love, love to see leadership from Board of Health there. So I'll pass this around. All right, so in addition to my work on the Tobacco Prevention and Cessation Program, I also chair the Healthy Communities Coalition. And so our vision is a community where people are empowered to make healthy choices. And our mission is to work as a diverse team of health advocates to improve the health and well-being in our community through education, motivation, policy development, and creative partnerships. So the Healthy Communities Coalition meets quarterly, 4 times a year. Our next meeting is November 19th from 10:30 to noon. We always, since the pandemic, we've been meeting over Teams. And I mention that because we would always, always welcome Board of Health to come and learn more about us, to participate. Let me see here. So under the umbrella of the Healthy Communities Coalition, we've had various work groups. Let's see here. In the past, we've had 2 and 3 work groups. Right now, we have 1 work group that's really engaged, and that's the Aging Well work group. I think I've spoken to some of you about that in the past. They're a really fantastic group. We meet every month, not just quarterly. And again, we would welcome your involvement. It's the first Thursday of the month from 1:30 to 2:30 over Teams as well. And so our kind of aim for Aging Well work group is to make a more age-friendly community. And when we think about that, we really want to make a more inclusive community. And that is actually one of our strategic initiatives, right? To improve health across the lifespan with a focus on early childhood, youth, and older adults. So that fits in perfectly to that strategic initiative. Here. There we go. Okay. So, of course, this is all about community partners. We have folks from Rocky's Agency on Aging. We have folks from AARP, the VA, CureView, St. Peter's Foundation, the City of Helena. We have people who volunteer in their community and then come to the Aging Well work group, which is really fantastic. So we have a kind of wide range of folks who participate, both who are in direct service and who are kind of adjacent advocacy organizations. Yeah, so our month, like I said, this monthly meetings, and we usually have updates from one or two subject matter experts. We've had all different things. We've had hoarding, we've had livable communities, we've had fall prevention, all different things. Another function of the group is to share kind of what's going on with each of the programs and to get support from one another to kind of brainstorm. So I think folks find that really helpful. And I think that's why we see such good engagement from month to month. No one wants to go to a meeting they don't have to go to. I know, I know that's true for almost everyone. So I'm really proud of the fact that people come back month after month because they find such value in the group conversation. So one of the focuses of the Well Work Group has been this age-friendly designation. And I know this is something I've spoken to many of you about in the past. And again, this ties back to that strategic initiative, right? To improve life across improve health across the lifespan, right? So with a focus on early child, youth, and older adults. And so what this is a designation that you can adopt through, it's in partnership with AARP. That is just who's created the framework. It has, once you get the designation, you're not in a formal relationship with the AARP. They just have provided the framework. So far, we've been really excited that the city of Helena has agreed and has adopted this to be an age-friendly community. So that's really thrilling. And the interesting thing is it already aligns with a lot of the work that they're doing. So it's not a big ask, it is a big ask, but it aligns with what their priorities already are. So the idea is to have a well-designed, age-friendly community that fosters economic growth and makes for healthier residents of all ages. So we are tasked with and would like to expand the number of communities that are willing to have this designation. And I know Mr. Mayor of East Helena is here. We would be very interested in discussing with you if East Helena might be interested in joining this, getting this designation. And of course, I'd be happy to provide all of the details, as well as the county, Lewis and Clark County. It would be really meaningful if we could also expand it beyond the city of Helena to the county. So this designation, it looks at the 8 domains of livability. I know that's something that we talk about in public health. Those include built environment things and social environments. So our November meeting of the Aging Well Work Group is going to really look very specifically at East Helena and the county of Lewis and Clark County to see. We're going to take the age-friendly designation criteria and we're going to line them up against any existing policies or future planning that either of those communities have and see where the commonalities are. So basically to do an assessment, we want to have a really good sense of before we ask formally from the county or from East Helena, what is already in place that is in keeping with the age-friendly designation. So thinking more about what is the age-friendly designation, it is a belief that the places where we live and where are made better by the people, if we can support people of all ages, when the local leaders commit to improving the quality of life for the very young and for the very old and everyone in between. So again, it ties back to that, one of our strategic initiatives, right? So it's in keeping with that. And I guess that's that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Yeah, can you give an example of your criteria?
Sure. So they're all different things. Like I said, built environment and social environment includes things like sidewalk cutouts, so people can use their wheelchair. If they use a wheelchair, it includes housing, outdoor spaces, transportation, all the things that we know increase the quality of life. It also includes things like health services and community supports, social participation, civic participation. So it goes back to the 8 domains of livability. And so what does that look like in practice? Again, it's about, planning of new roads and schools and neighborhoods. Is it keeping in mind how to be inclusive for everyone in that community, from the very young to the very old and in between?
Could you send us the sort of designation criteria?
I would be happy to, Mr. Chair.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, item number 8, demonstration of Monday.com for board collaboration.
Let me. Okay. Right. Mr. Chair, Fred and I are both going to kind of tag team this. What you're seeing on the screen is a template. There's for the Board of Health. This is not, actually in practice, but this is just an example of how this might be able to work to provide a platform for you to go to find education material, to discuss maybe some topics, to have a community calendar where you can see commissioner is attending the powwow on Friday while you might be attending the Sober Delight event at the library. So that's kind of what this is for. So I will jump in. We have a dashboard. And on this dashboard, everything again is customizable to, there really are, like, the sky's the limit on being able to modify this and make it work the way you want to make it work. So just on this dashboard, you can see just some simple things of the calendar. There might be some notes about community events. There's a board update. So there's a discussion board, and I believe Drenda noted prepare to present on how many antelope she counted on the Wyoming trip. And there are several. So you have a workspace, it's called Board of Health. And then in that workspace, you can have multiple boards. Sherry might decide that she would like to have a board that is just based on the environmental aspects that we have, so that that's sectioned off into one spot. Dr. Nass might say, I'd really like to have a WIC or a home visiting board where I can go and find. So you have a lot of options. This one I created is community events. And this is where we can go and put notes about Games for Life. You can put the date, who the event contact is, what type of event it is. Is it social? Is it about, smoking awareness, or again, whatever it might be. And all of these can be added, changed to make it fit what you need. I have a Board of Health training board. And again, this is where variance procedures. You can, I created these things to say, like, level of need. It's highly important to know about variance procedures. This is something that is definitely, maybe program summaries. Those are the program summaries for LCPH. You may already know the basics of those. So it's informational purposes. So again, all these can be customized. The lead member, if somebody is, Lisa Kaufman is the hearings officer, so she might be the lead member on variance procedures, so that you would know, I need a little bit more to get the better understanding of this, so you would know which board member maybe to go to get that. Notes. And each one of these you can add files to. So if I open this, there's this could be where maybe, Mr. Chair, you and, the vice chair have a conversation about, that the upcoming, variance meeting of, are you bringing that document or whatever it might be? I know that there's some very specific guidelines, Brenda, can give more on that of what kind of discussions can happen. But you can add files here. Whoops. So I put that criteria worksheet that you saw Beth Norberg reading from today that the hearings officer used to hear that last variance. So that's in here. So if you know we have a variance coming, you could go here to this education area, look at what this worksheet is. The variance hearing process could be added here. So again, just an easy space for you to go and find things. It could be, like I said, it's designed as you design it, as you decide what needs to be added. And then I created this board because why not? Board of Health agenda discussion topic. So you are up at 4 a.m. and you're on the treadmill and you're thinking, oh, it'd be really great if we had a discussion about the resolution for the federal funding. You could go here and make a note. And again, there's a discussion board where there can be communication back and forth of, I need a ride over to the meeting on Thursday. Is anyone coming past the hospital? Can I catch a ride or whatever that might be?
Board meeting packets.
Exactly. Board meeting packets, which I did put that in there somewhere. It's somewhere in here. Maybe in the training area. I did put one in there, but yes, the board packets instead of emailing it and it getting lost, buried in there, it would be here. Obviously you can always get those on the website too, but again, this would be one platform where you could share documents and look at them. Maybe when Brenda is done with that resolution, she could pop that into here, and then everyone could see it. You could have an active discussion back and forth about notes of, can we add this? Can we move this? Can we change that? If that communication is allowed, again, Brenda will have to note that. So there's my 50-second tour.
Well, the only thing I might add to it too, so the reason, that kind of begs the question, you want to make everything as simple as possible, but not simpler. And so I think one of the advantages a tool like this might have over just having information posted on the website is it's extremely easy as well for staff and others to be able to go out there and create something as a one-off board that's available because there's going to be an event or you're having a retreat or because there's a board meeting coming up. It's relatively, it's just more malleable with less process, if that makes sense. And so, if we decide to move forward and try to use this, there's also not a tremendous investment of time or additional money, right, to build something like this. So I'm a big advocate of things like this to make sure that it addresses a need, and that if it becomes a simple way to have a more valuable environment to share information, then I think that's great. And I think sometimes we only know because it gets used, right, or not used. But if you use it for a period between meetings and it's was almost useful, but gosh, I wish we had these three things. Like Sandy was saying, it's very easy to add those three without going to a outside contractor and having somebody modify the website and bring new technology in. It's just very simple for us to play with it for a period of time to see if it's useful.
Yes.
Any questions?
One, I'm assuming there's email notification options.
Yes.
So that if we're not checking it every day, we can see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good question.
There are parameters that can be set up so that you get notified the way you want to get notified on what you want to get notified about. So yes, that certainly is an option.
And it looked like there was in sort of the comments area, in certain sort of
I don't remember where I was.
in each of these modules, it looks like there's a way to tag people.
Yeah.
That okay.
Yes. So where was I? One of these, I think we had a discussion going. I just can't remember where. So here's a discussion board. I invited Mike to my testing board. So yeah, so you can, like you said, tag someone and say, here's this. you can add a file. So if Sherry had, a question on or wanted to share what she picked up at the WQPD board meeting, and there was maybe some FYI in there that she thought was really interesting, she could drop that in here and mention you guys. And then, of course, based off your notification, you would get that notification and would be able to see what it is that she added.
And then I guess we would need guidelines too about what things can we discuss, although I'm assuming at least part of that could be if we're continuing it, like we can't decide stuff presumably, like pass resolutions, et cetera.
Right.
But could we hypothetically in the next meeting, show the comments and say, here is the public record of the things the board members have been considering. Is there public comment on this? I'm assuming we develop protocols, but.
Brenda, would you be able to say?
Yes, I would say if this is something that the board would like to pursue, what you will do is rate, and I think I see Nico in the back there. He can help me put together appropriate protocols of how the board can use this. Essentially, it could not be used to have any discussion at all on an action item. But if you wanted to, I think you gave a couple of really great examples of how it can be used is if Dr. Nass needs a ride and somebody was driving by the hospital, that's a great way to use it. If there's an event coming up in the community, Karin just mentioned that there is a celebration for the Clean Indoor Air Act that can be posted and members can say, oh, I'm planning to go to that, so that there's some understanding of is there going to be board representation at a really important community function. That type of functionality will be highly encouraged, but any kind of a action item on an agenda cannot be discussed in this. So again, we'll have to write up some really clear protocol and do some training on how to use it and then what the protocol are. Nico, what would you add as far as the use of something like this for board members?
Yeah, I think these tools are awesome, and every once in a while statutes get in the way of that. And so anytime you have a board like yourselves, when there's an opportunity for a quorum of your board to even be kind of simultaneously at the same time, that's where we start seeing these issues. And the statutes are so broad that it's anything that's under your jurisdiction. So that being said, stuff like this, I think there's an absolute appropriate place for it, and everything that we brought up makes really good sense. I think just to piggyback off what Brenda said, we'd have to develop some pretty strict protocols in that. I think you brought up kind of an example of, okay, we've got a board discussion. Well, here's kind of some ongoing discussion about a thing. So that's what cannot happen, unfortunately. Even if you were to bring that back up at the next meeting, you guys tell me when you get bored. Boards have to do that when you're curing the violation of an open meeting law. You then have to kind of present your receipts, but it should not be used as a policy to say, actually, we did have this discussion, but did not let the public know. But that's not to poo-poo any of this by any means. I mean, this is awesome, and this is really cool to see this presentation. But yeah, so that's stuff we can work on later.
I love the idea of this being a resource directory as well. There's so much that we share with board members, and yes, the board packets are all historically posted on the website, but to have a space where you can easily go and find a specific resource that you need, and I think that variance criteria is a really good example of that. There are times when you need that, and so to have it really easy and be able to find that really easy. So having a place where all your resources are in one place and easily accessible.
Yeah, thank you so much for, sorry, go ahead, Sandy.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, are there any other areas that you want me to show? Any other questions about?
My work firewall wouldn't let me access this at all.
Right, so you had to.
Everything's real tight on where I can go on the internet.
Yeah.
So I have to, this will be before 6 a.m. and after 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Work. Yeah. But I love the idea of a document repository, right? So I don't have to go back through my files and look, and it's documents readily available is big for me.
that's one of the things that, like really kind of just that central location, that, and then the calendar. Mr. Chair, I know you had mentioned before, I think back maybe in the beginning of the year, just really wanting to be able to work together as a board to make sure representation at community events. And that can be hard, you know, if you're emailing Dr. Nast, but Sherry might, you know, be emailing Fred, you know, Commissioner Rolfe might be talking to Drenda, and all the pieces are not connecting, then it's hard to know. So having that, you know, the one-stop calendar to be able to see what community events are coming up is another opportunity so that you can see.
Yeah.
And then that's just a simple thing in the community, you know, to be able to say, you know, I'm attending. So you could then look at this board and see that, okay, we have 7 events coming up in the next 2 months. And it looks like we have somebody representing at 5 of them. Gives a good spice. So
We have a calendar system like that at the commission, but so much of what we do is public, you know, it's, and typically I'll put in there if I have a personal meeting that I want to go to, or I'm going to have a doctor's appointment, I'll put out a personal block in there, and then I've got a separate calendar for my personal.
right.
Well, you know, another calendar or another repository might be redundant, but I think it's got some merit.
All right.
Thank you. I really think that, you know, for the purposes of logistics of running the board, this is a really useful tool, perhaps. I know that historically we've just, you know, gotten emails from Drenda about any updates. And I think that's good for making sure it's sort of like one-sided communication, right? Like it's sort of a blast out to all of us, but it doesn't really, for the things that we can, again, the logistical things that we can and sometimes need to talk about in between meetings, we don't have a great platform for that, right? So I think it sounds like this is a pretty low cost option.
This is something that we have already, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, and so this is a ability to utilize an existing piece without additional cost to see if this purpose works.
Yeah. So I think especially considering that, like, I think that this really could potentially at least fit the bill. And I think it's worth kind of testing out. And if it doesn't work, we're no worse off. But I think it could be really, really useful. Any other thoughts on that? Do we want to try to get that set up before the next meeting and play around in it?
I would make a motion to do that, yes.
Yeah, that's the only way we're gonna know. Is if we use it.
Just as long as we are, you know, testing it out. So let's
Administrative functions.
yeah,
right?
let's not discuss any, for the time being, since we don't have a policy in place, let's not discuss anything related to the next meeting. But let's just, you know,
Add files.
Yeah.
You know, check calendars.
Check calendars, sign up for the one I put in my calendar on Clean Indoor Air Act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can definitely do that, Mr. Chair. I'll populate actual events, not fictitious one, which the powwow is on Friday. That is a real event. I did not create that one. So, okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Sandy.
You're welcome.
All right, action item 9, agenda item 9, follow up on items from August board meeting. Drenda, do you have follow up?
Yes, yeah, just a couple. And actually, this is another example of how Monday.com might be useful for the board. There were a couple of questions that came up at the last board meeting. We've made note of it, and I'm prepared to give you the responses today, but I could have easily just posted those responses in Monday.com right after the board meeting and let you have that information right away. I chose to hold on to it and give you the information today during this board meeting. But I think that that's just another example of how Monday.com can be used to help the board share information. And so, yeah, I just wanted to follow up on 2 items. At the last meeting, I believe it was Mike who asked about the number of individuals we are serving through our cancer control program. And actually Fred worked with staff to get some numbers. And let me share my screen here and I can just show you the breakdown of what Melissa shared. So she was able to put together a table with multiple fiscal years. And so you can see that our program has really changed over the course of time. If we look all the way back to 2014, we were at a goal of 400 and we were able to screen 200. And then in this past fiscal year, 2025, the goal was 55 and we were able to screen 62. And so you can see how the program has just over the course of time gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, and that is also reflective of the budget. The budget for that program has also gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. But the question came, how many people are we serving in this program? And so here's what that looks like for the last several years.
For the breast and cervical cancer screening, is that purely the result of decreased budget, so decreased capacity, or is that in any measure improved community access through other venues? Is that too optimistic?
Yeah, I think it's both. Dr. Nast, when Medicaid and Medicare expanded, specifically Medicare or Medicaid, that this program serves women who are uninsured or underinsured. And so the expansion of Medicaid helped to cover that expense for a lot of women. And so then the need went down as well. And so that is one element to the story. Federal funding has decreased. And so that's another part of the story. We have always had a full-time staff person working in this program, and that has now decreased to a half-time staff person based on budget and available funding.
And we are 1 minute over. So Brenda, you said you had one more?
Yes, sorry.
No.
The other item was the question about expanded Medicaid coverage. And I think Dr. Nast asked that question at the last meeting. And so this just takes us back in time a little bit. I shared this back when we were learning about what Medicaid did for the people of Lewis and Clark County. And so expanded Medicaid, so not the typical Medicaid, but the expansion of Medicaid covered an additional 4,862 residents in Lewis and Clark County. And so if in fact the changes that are happening at the federal level around Medicaid results in Montana having to also cut back the Medicaid program, it is highly likely, and I'm making some speculation here, it is highly likely it's this population that is currently covered by expanded Medicaid that will be impacted by that. And so I'm anticipating that almost 5,000 residents in Lewis and Clark County may lose their coverage based on what's happening at the federal level around the reduction of funding for Medicaid. So those were a couple questions that I wanted to make sure you all got the answer for from last meeting.
Thank you, Brenda. Any questions on that? Those two things, I guess. Thank you so much. Public comment on anything within the board jurisdiction?
I had a thought as we're talking about budgeting situations. Your county has a budget of a little over $120 million a year. We bring in property taxes in ballpark figures, $40 million. The rest of it, to a large degree, are federal and state grants. And I think the reality is probably federal grants are going to get smaller. But fortunately, our state has a huge surplus. And so I think that maybe we need to be looking at some of the state programs as a potential that we might not see from other places. one of the things that we've asked all departments to do is to prioritize things. For instance, in the Public Works Department, we have 1,500 miles of roads that are county roads, but we can only afford to work on 576 miles and maintain them. So we have a priority list for every road where it sits on that priority. So if funding is short, the bottom end of that funding priority doesn't get funded. And we're encouraging every department to go through that process, to prioritize and look for things to do. But I do really think when you've got a federal government that's $40 trillion in debt, and there is some realistic talk to try to do something about that. And we've got a state budget that's got a huge surplus for the size of our state. That probably the real opportunity is for state money rather than for federal money. There's always going to be some federal money, I'm sure, different programs, but I think we got to be open-minded to what are other opportunities? Are there foundations out there that we can go to for healthcare money beyond the governmental side of it? So I think the realities are changing for us, and we need to be willing to make the most of where we're at and try to be prepared to go to battle for it. And try to get what obviously we're going to have to get some money from somewhere to do all the things we'd like to do. And we may not be able to do everything we'd like to do, but let's prioritize and make good decisions and make the dollars stretch as far as possible.
Yeah, thank you. It's always good to have the perspective of the commission and seeing the whole budget and where things are coming from. So I appreciate that. Any other board comment?
Sure, board members, I know I missed my window with those guys before. This is going back to like the variance criteria and stuff. I want to let you guys know, as part of the county attorney's office, if you have any questions, like reach out, please. Like happy to talk, especially with is the hardship and extraordinary conditions, right? Those are really flexible, malleable things. You see from the history with the department and coming up with those terms that are an administrative rule, that those are really passed on to a board to then say, how do you want to be phrasing these in your community? So with that, I know we're almost time, but just want to let you guys know, please feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any members of the public online, Sandy?
Very good, Mr. Chair. I just had one, just because it's always good to stop and with some great news, and it's kind of late breaking news, but we don't often, it's not unusual, but it's nice when we get recognition from the community. And Top Gun Auto Body let us know this week that they're actually going to honor our suicide prevention team as Heroes of Helena. And so they're going to have a classic car show. Then there's a half-hour barbecue that they'll honor members of our team, and there's motocross. So like it's a good day all around. But it's happening this Saturday out at Top Gun Auto Body. But that it was just nice to have it's initiated from the community some recognition of the work that's happening from your health department. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thank you. Did you see no?
No comment. Yeah.
Done in the room. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.